Hey guys, what's up? Alright, so today we are talking about setting the azimuth. So we have talked so far about the basic features of the map. We talked about what the grid lines are, what the contours are. We discussed all of the things that are on the legend of a map and the information that you find on it and how to use it. So with that being said, we went over the compass and some of the basic features of the compass. We are going to go over today how to use your compass and your map to set your azimuth. So an azimuth, as defined by I guess people who use land navigation, is a horizontal angle that is measured clockwise from a north baseline. So it's the most common military method to express direction. So basically an azimuth is a way to express direction. So I am going to try and get my phone angled at the map in a way that's really good for you guys to see it, because I have to show you. So I have the compass that I used in our videos before in the same map, and I have I have two spots picked out to use to show you as a demonstration for setting an azimuth. So the first thing we want to do is get our camera lined up on the map. Okay, so you see I have my little definition there, the azimuth. So I'm going to try and get this set up so that, bear with me, so that the camera is actually just focused on the spots that I want to use. So I'm going to see how this looks. So one of the things that you'll probably want to have is a straight edge. And the straight edge is going to help you plot your line between the 2 points that you are, between your starting point and your destination point. So I had a very light line drawn on my map. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. So here's my starting point, right here in the spot. All right. So the first thing I want to do, okay, so I know we're just pretending here. So I'm already here. I know I'm right here. This is my starting point, and my destination, my goal is to go from here to this hilltop, right up here. So that's my goal. So one of the first things I would do, let me see what the best way is, line up my straight edge with the centers of the hilltops. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's actually a little X here, and that's pretty close to the center of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is line my paper up, my straight edge, right here. So you can either leave the paper there, or you can draw the line on your map depending on what kind of map you have. We have some maps that are laminated, so you could use a map marker on them, or a dry erase marker. But for our purposes, we're just going to leave the straight edge here so that you can see better. So what I'm going to do first is find my hilltop here, and I'm going to line the center of my compass up with it. Okay. Excuse me. The first thing I'm going to do with my compass is make sure that the dial is set to 0, because we are using our grid north to start, and I'll as I go through this, I'll explain what I'm doing. Alrighty, let me get this lined up again, moved. Okay, so once you have your compass dialed to 0 or north and it's lined up with your tab here, you're going to center your compass. So you're centering your needle on your starting point. And then you're going to move your compass toward your destination point until your orienting lines, these lines in here, until one of them lines up with your grid lines. Okay? So our starting point, our orienting lines do not line up with any of our grid lines. So we're just going to take our compass and very carefully move it until it lines up with a grid line. And the reason you want to do this is you want your compass to be perfectly north on your map. And the best way to do that is to make sure that your orienting lines are perfectly lined up with your grid lines. Okay? So now we have the orienting line lined up with our grid line, and my needle is still centered on my straight edge. So what I'm going to do now is look at my dial, and I can see the straight edge comes up to about 284 degrees, okay? So I know that that is my map azimuth, or my grid azimuth. That 284 degrees is my grid azimuth, okay? So from here, I'm going to come down to the declination of the map. And you probably will know this already if you're setting an azimuth, but the declination, if you remember, are your north arrows. Okay, and I think I may have misspoke in one of our prior videos. I don't know if I covered it, I don't remember. But you can see your grid north, GN. I'm sorry about the focus, guys. Your GN is your grid north, so that's your perfect north on your map. Your magnetic north, you can see it says 11 degrees here. So that means that you're going to add 11 degrees to your grid north to get your azimuth. Okay? So this is important to do. It's important because I'll show you once we get everything else here. Okay, so the declination, you want to make sure you know that. And you want to make sure you know that if your magnetic north is to the left, okay, I'll show you again. So if your magnetic north arrow is to the left of your grid north arrow, that means you add this degrees to your azimuth number that we just got right here for your grid azimuth. Because what we're seeking to do is find our magnetic azimuth. Because that is going to give you your true direction that you need to travel to reach your destination point. So, if on my map this magnetic north arrow was over here to the right, that means I would subtract 11 degrees to get my magnetic azimuth. I don't know if anybody's on. If you are and you have any questions as I'm going over this stuff, please type in a comment and ask. I'd be more than happy to clarify anything for you guys. I know that this stuff is actually pretty simple if you like follow along and you try to do it. It's not really that hard. But the terminology kind of, when you have new terminology and it's not something you're familiar with, sometimes it can make the learning process a little bit more challenging. So when I do the blog for our video, I'm going to make sure that I revisit some of the definitions and clarify some of the terms for you guys. So moving on, we've identified our grid azimuth as 284 degrees. So now I need to add 11 degrees to 284. So that will give me my magnetic azimuth of 295 degrees. Okay? Now here's where the important part is. If you skip the step of subtracting or adding your declination for magnetic north, you're going to end up very far off of your target. For instance, with this map here, let me see. If I were to take this down to, up 11 degrees, you can see even just being off 11 degrees, you're going to be 500 meters off of your target. And that's if you keep your azimuth perfectly straight, if you stay on your azimuth the entire time, which we'll get into that here in a little bit. But okay, so we have our grid azimuth. We know what our magnetic azimuth is. So the next step would be to take your compass and you're going to hold it in front of you so that it is perfectly straight, okay? And we're going to turn our dial here so that it is at the 295. Which, hold on guys, okay. So which is about right here. Okay, we're not worrying about the arrows or which direction north is or anything right now. So this is our magnetic azimuth number, the 295. So now we have our dial turned to that. Now you want to turn your body. You're holding the compass nice and flat, and you're going to turn your body until your north arrow lines up with your orienting arrow. You see how it's lined up there? So this tells you, as you're walking in the woods, if you have your north arrow and your orienting arrow always in line, that you are going the correct direction and you are on your magnetic azimuth. Okay? I hope that makes sense to you guys. Now, I'm going to turn this back to me real quick. I don't know how the angle's going to be. That's okay. So, now we have our azimuth set. Our magnetic azimuth is set. So, how do you stay on your magnetic azimuth as you're navigating through the woods? The best way to do that is you're going to hold your compass in front of you. Let me adjust a little bit here. So you're holding your compass in front of you. You have your north arrow in line with your orienting arrow. You have your magnetic azimuth set on your dial. So what you're going to do is find a identifiable, rememberable, something unique, like landmark, or maybe it's a tree, or maybe it's a big boulder that stands out to you. And you're going to make sure that it lines up with your magnetic azimuth. And then you're going to walk toward that object. When you get to said object, then you simply step around it and get yourself lined back up in the middle of it, okay? And then you continue on. You just do that the entire time until you reach your destination. Now, you're not always going to be able to have easily identifiable objects in the distance. So what do you do if you get off of your azimuth and you have no choice? You have to walk all around and you kind of get off course. Well, you have to start over again. You pull your map out and you use a technique called resection, which we will go over tomorrow. I don't want to get into it today because it would be too long. So you use resection, you find yourself on your map, reset your azimuth to your destination point just like we just did. You just go through those steps again from the current spot that you are at. Now, if maybe you need to go around the obstruction, but you know that you don't have to go so far off course that you can't get back too close to where your azimuth is, you can do what they call shoot your back azimuth. So what you're going to do for that is, before you go around the obstacle, you're going to turn a complete 180 degrees. I'm not going to actually turn around since you guys won't see me. So you turn 180 degrees. So your south arrow is now lined up with your orienting arrow. Okay, so you just did a 180. In your back azimuth, you're going to find an object now that is in front of you to identify. So you should be able to find something there. A tree, a rock, of something that you'll remember. So once you have that object, remember it. Then you can go around your obstruction, come back up when you get to the other side of the obstruction, shoot your back azimuth again. So you're going to do a 180 again so that your south arrow is lined up with your orienting arrow. And you're going to align yourself with that object that you did the first back azimuth on. Does that make sense? So I just came around my obstacle and my object is over here. I'm literally going to sidestep until my compass is in line with that object. Now I'm going to do another 180 and then I can continue on my way. Then I can find another object to line that is in line with my azimuth. So that's one of the best ways to stay on it. I don't really know if there's a better way that is simple to do unless you're really good at keeping your pace counts, which I'm not. I've tried and I'm terrible at it. So that's just a little a good way to stay on your azimuth, obviously, and keep yourself oriented also, because when you identify the objects in the woods and you see something unique, if you do get turned around and you can't find where you're at, maybe you come across something that you used for your azimuth, and maybe you'll be able to find where you're at a little bit better. So another tip when you are out in the woods navigating is, oh, my battery's gonna die, I better hurry, is to remember that you tend to veer toward your dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, you tend to veer to the right when you're walking. If you're left-handed, you tend to veer to the left when you're walking. So keep that in mind when you're going around things. So if I went around this tree and I went to the right, the next tree I find, I'm gonna go around to the left. So just a little tip for you guys to hopefully help you out. That is my video on azimuth, and I'm gonna get off of here before my phone dies. If you have questions, by all means, please post them. Feel free to comment. I want to hear your feedback. Let me know what you think. And tomorrow we will get into our resection technique, and I'll show you guys how to find yourselves on a map out in the middle of the woods. Hopefully I can get on earlier and it's still daylight. Maybe we can actually be outside and have more room to work. All right, guys, I hope you all have a great night. I will see you later. Peace out.